You saw the U.S. put a lot of pressure on Ukraine. You had that disastrous Oval Office meeting a couple Fridays ago where it seemed like there was a pretty serious rupture. Then you had the suspension of military aid and U.S. intelligence sharing. And now it seems like the two sides have essentially made up. I mean, Ukraine, apparently they gave the U.S. what it wanted, gave President Trump what he wanted, which was just essentially a commitment to the idea of peace. So Ukraine says, yes, we are willing to agree to a ceasefire. Now the ball is in Russia's court. So, in some ways, a pretty canny move by Ukraine. They're not giving any concessions at the moment beyond just saying, yes, we want peace. Now it's up to Russia to decide whether they will agree to the ceasefire. So putting pressure back on Vladimir Putin, which is where they had wanted it all along.
Does Russia want peace? What is in this deal for Russia? Why would Russia say yes to this?
It's a great question. So far, all indications, at least as when you talk to the Ukrainians, Europeans, and many others, is that Russia does not want peace. They want to continue the fighting. And so this is going to be a real test of President Trump's strategy. See what happens. I mean, the other possibility, and one of the reasons Ukraine had been very concerned is, okay, well, what if Russia agrees to a ceasefire and then violates it? So that's entirely possible too. I mean, you should be noted, of course, that this is still very much in the formative stages. This is not a formal deal. Would not sure what there is actually on paper here. The U.S. side will go to the Russians and say, okay, we have this proposal for a ceasefire to just stop the fighting for the time being so we can move to negotiations. Whether they accept that, of course, is another matter entirely.
I mean, who has the upper hand here, Nick? And I ask you, just kind of reading in this morning, my understanding is that Ukraine attacked Moscow before dawn this morning, drone attacks, which seems like a pretty bold approach or move with these talks going on at the same time. So I'm just curious at this point, does one of them have the upper hand, be it Russia or Ukraine?
Right. I mean, I think long term, the feeling is that if things continue as they have gone, Russia would continue to strengthen its hand because it just has so much more manpower and resources and assets that it can bring to bear on this fight. So in a war of attrition, the feeling is that Russia would slowly take more ground and continue to grind down the Ukrainians, especially if they had faltering U.S. support. Now, the big question here is, okay, President Trump says he's going to continue now the flow of military aid, but is he going to ramp it up? I mean, the feeling for a long time had been the aid the U.S. was providing was enough to keep Ukraine in the fight, but not to help it win. And certainly the same in terms of aid from the European side. So the question now is he's unlocked that aid. Is he going to give more aid? What happens when that aid runs out? I mean, they're going to need a lot more in the many months ahead. So right now, the feeling is Russia has the upper hand some, but will the U.S. and Europe give Ukraine what it wants so that it can take the upper hand?